go deep, not wide. I used to be like this. I was like, I need to go to the event and connect with 20 people. Now, when I'm going to an event, let's say it's a one-day event, I say, I'd like to get 2 great connections out of this, or per month, 2 great connections a month. And then it's what connections am I continuing to nurture that month? Because if you think about it, if you're creating even 5 connections a month, that's 60 a year. You might be able to get on 60 phone calls or 60 coffee chats. But if you keep adding, how are you going to take care of the ones you've already created? And I think so many people go so shallow and they keep adding. And the reality is opportunities don't show up in shallow connection.
Welcome to Glow Up Boss, your business school in a podcast for beauty business entrepreneurs. So I recently went to this amazing business and mindset event, and I met this incredible woman that really changed the way I saw going to live events. You know, after COVID, being on lockdown, not meeting with people, you kind of get out of practice on how to show up at these events. And you meet people, you think, oh my goodness, after this event, I really want to follow up with them. You know, I know this is someone I want to build a relationship with, or I know that this door opening is going to lead to places that I'm really looking to go. And then after the event, a week goes by, a month goes by, and you forget their name. You forget their face. Well, this woman literally changed all of that for me. Her name is Rebecca Cafiero, and she is a visionary entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and visibility expert who empowers ambitious CEOs and founders to align soul and strategy for greater impact and profitability. As the founder of the Pitch Club, Rebecca has guided hundreds of female entrepreneurs to be seen, heard, and valued, elevating their credibility and visibility across industries. Her insights have been featured on NBC, ABC, Good Morning America, Forbes, Business Insider, Women's Health, and more. With over a decade in corporate America leading to high-performing sales and marketing teams to $1 billion+ in sales, Rebecca's journey is defined by her unwavering belief in the power of purpose-driven business. She's passionate about showing others how to turn bold visions into reality by combining personal alignment with business growth. I couldn't be more excited to introduce you to Rebecca Cafiero. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm so honored that you're joining us.
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction. And this is my favorite way to start out a Monday, is like starting out the week, getting to share the things that have worked for me that I love with other amazing women entrepreneurs.
Amazing, amazing. So at the event that I met you at, you literally blew my mind. Everything I believed about going to these events and meeting and how to connect and remember who people are and reach out and build those relationships. I would love for you to share with our listeners what you shared with us at this event.
Absolutely. Well, I want to start out by talking about what people are listening to the podcast for, right? They're listening to your podcast, or they're out even at events to grow their business. And every single person, every woman or man who is listening, right? You are the human being breathing life into your business. And I think often we forget that at the end of the day, right? We are the face of our brand, typically. We are the story, the mission, the vision behind the brand. And we can get really lost in the business minutia, in the strategy minutia, and forget, frankly, sometimes about going back to basics in pursuit of often bright, shiny objects. And I know in my business, when I have gone back and I've looked at, okay, what not only works to grow my business, but also what is enjoyable, what consistently gives me joy, and also what consistently, sustains my business. It always came back to in person. When I say in person, that could be meeting people, connecting with people. It could be deepening relationships in person. And of course, over Zoom already also works if you already have the relationship began. But I think that we often think it's all based on algorithms. We need to be running the Facebook ads or the Instagram ads or going viral on TikTok, or there's always some type of strategy that is outside of ourself. And I know I've invested lots of time, energy, and money into those strategies, thinking it was the next best thing. And what I really found is when I looked at where are my favorite clients from, where are the most incredible opportunities I've had, they have always started from a human experience. They've always started either from someone that I met in person or was nurtured in person, or they were a referral or a recommendation. And I started to really examine that. And so, I opened that event and I asked everyone there, and I would say to anyone that's listening right now, when you go to an event, you ask yourself, what are you there for? Okay? What are you there for? Why are you taking time and energy out of your daily life or your client load to go to grow yourself and your business? And the answers a lot of times are people are saying, well, I'm there for introductions, or I'm there for strategy. And what I told the audience, what I'll tell everyone listening is like, people and introductions and strategy is sitting in your DMs and your email. I mean, depending on how many emails you get, like every morning I'm like deleting like this potential copywriter, all these people pitching themselves to me, all these strategies. And what we're really looking for is connection. And you hit the nail on the head, is since 2020, connection is more and more precious. And at the same time, we've been telling ourselves that we need to like do all these things to scale. And I'm not saying that you can't scale your business and that you have to, pull out a Rolodex all the time. And I'm not saying that at all. But it's understanding that the power of who we are in person, the power of the three-dimensional human being, like you can fake who you are in a 30-second Instagram reel. You can't fake how you show up for 30 minutes or an hour, right? Your true essence is going to come through. And so when you realize that power, and you really understand like what is the benefit, because I will say I am one of those people. I'm an extroverted introvert. So I get fueled if I'm in rooms with people that I feel like are authentic and like-minded. I get drained from being in rooms where I feel like I have to be a different person than who I am. And so if someone is listening and you're like, well, I get drained going to those events, it's probably because you don't feel the permission, or you just don't have the confidence in just showing up as yourself. And that is partly that we're trying to probably talk to more people than we need to, or we're feeling drained because we have to make conversation with people that we don't feel aligned with. But at the end of the day, like, how do you connect with people in a way that not only feels good and allows you to show up as who you are, which, by the way, if you're not showing up as who you are, you're not going to drive business and opportunities to yourself. But then how do you actually nurture those relationships? How do you nurture when you do meet that person that you're excited about? How do you not only nurture them, how do you remember them? Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. So I'm going to give you some tips and tools. And the beautiful thing about this is these don't only work if you're going to an event where you're meeting new people, but it's also something that you can go back to existing relationships and really, again, and nurture and deepen. But I will say the very first thing starts with thinking about who can I help and who do you want to grow with? If you go into an event, everyone's experiences, I won't even say in as far as if you go into an event, how many times have you gone to something or you've met someone and you can feel they have like a grabby or thirsty energy? You can see that they're not listening to whatever they've asked you, but they're like waiting to jump in with something, or they're waiting to tell you what they want or need. And you can feel that this is a very transactional experience. So I want everyone to think about everything I'm going to share with this filter of, you're not meant to do business with everyone, but to really discern who are the people that I'm drawn to, who are the people that I'm attracted to, that I'm activated by, and that I want to grow with, that like we call it business besties because you actually want to be in a relationship with them. And you feel like this is going to be transformational for you personally as well as professionally, and not from a standpoint of transaction, because nobody wants to be a number in a transaction. We all want to feel like we're being treated as a human being. And I would say, especially because everyone out there is a business owner, but they're also a client of some business, right? So you could be an incredible, hairdresser or have a brick and mortar, but you're going to someone else for your facials or for your nails or for, your body work. And think about, how did you meet that person, or how were you referred to that person, and what is the experience that you felt? Because somebody could be great at what they do, but if they don't make you feel good in their presence, you probably will continue to look for someone else. So that's the first thing, is like, it's energy management before anything else. Right.
That's a whole other topic.
It's a whole other topic. Yes. I mean, listen, like this. Go into events with a good, clean energy. And there's so many ways to do that, right? Like you put on your favorite song and dance or, really ensuring that you're just present. Like I go in and I'm going to put my phone away unless I need to take it out for a photo, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to say like, I am taking the time out of my day and my schedule away from my family, away from my clients, because I'm there to connect. And so if I am multitasking and if I am on my text messages, if I'm trying to like be plugged into my business while I'm at the event, I'm not going to get out of it what I intend. And you're there again to work on your business, to connect with people, to not be in your business for that hour, that day, that week, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take everyone through just a little exercise, because I know, myself included, when I have an event to go to, even if I like the idea of it and I plan it out, the day of, I'm usually like, oh, is my energy right? Like, oh, what if I don't meet anyone? And again, this is as someone that is pretty extroverted, especially if you're introverted, or if you're just going through life and you're feeling a little drained, you're going into that event. And if you're not prepared to connect, you may not get something out of it and it will deplete you. So how do you go in really with the mindset and the tools to ensure that you're connecting with someone, right? And by the way, you can all work on this with your new clients too. Like when someone comes into your business or they come into your energy on Zoom, if it's, you're talking about a collaboration, like how do you show up in a way, regardless of what's going on, that is going to feel open, inviting, and authentic to that person? And so the very first thing, this is so simple, and often the things that work the best really are, but it's to going into that room or that Zoom room or that exchange and just giving someone a genuine compliment. That's it. A genuine compliment. This is not hard. And I would say, Renique, that most of your listeners are probably, I call everyone that's a helper a healer. Right? So even if they don't identify as a healer, if you are in the transformation business, if someone is walking out of your business feeling better, feeling prettier, feeling more of themselves, like you are giving them a transformation. And so you are healing them for that time that they are in your chair, on your table, right in your store.
Oh my God, that is so true. I never even thought about that, but that is so true.
It is. I mean, it's healing, right? And I've told my clients that for years. I say I work with healers, and people are like, "Well, I'm an attorney, or I'm a whatever business. I'm a coach. I'm not a healer. I'm not an energy worker, a naturopath." I'm like, yes, but if you are a paradigm shifter, if somebody walks into the experience of being in your presence and they walk out better, if you have given them a little bit of transformation, you are a healer. And so I invite you to think about that. And when you think about yourself as a healer, you realize how important the energy is that you walk in with. And so what I'm going to give you is just some things to help you feel more confident and embodied in that energy so that you can show up more authentically as you. You can show up more vibrant, because that's what people are drawn to, is they're drawn to your energy. Again, you can have all the awards, best whatever business, but if you show up and you don't have a clean energy, people are not going to care about the accomplishments. Okay. So I just love to, if I am drawn to someone and I look at who am I drawn to energetically, right? Who am I drawn to energetically? And the first thing I think about is like, what can I say to them that is a genuine compliment? And so sometimes it's just like, oh my goodness, like it's Girlfriends in Business, the event we were at, everyone looked amazing. It was like a fashion show at a business event. And so it's really easy to say like, I love your shoes, or like, I love the way you put that outfit together, or, oh my goodness, like, you could compliment them physically. You have the most beautiful eyes, or your smile radiates. Or if you've heard them talk, maybe they've volunteered and said something like, what you said, I really connected with that. So what is something genuine that you can say to connect with them and to deepen that conversation? That's the very first thing, not what's your name and what do you do? Start with the compliment, because it does disarm people. And it's not about disarming them in a way that, is like taking advantage of anyone. It's about disarming both of you and connecting just from a human to human level, so that it takes away some of those nerves and some of that trepidation around like revealing who you are.
Definitely. Glow Up Boss podcast is brought to you today by Infinity Sun. Are you an entrepreneur thinking that you'd like to start a new business that's fun, that doesn't cost a lot of money to start up, that you could do in the evenings and weekends and earn lots and lots of money, starting a spray tanning business definitely checks off all those boxes. With state-of-the-art plug-and-spray proprietary spray tanning systems that require only one solution, you can literally choose 30 different levels of spray on the spray tanning system itself. Infinity Sun offers sunless tanning solutions that combine high-end skincare together with sunless tanning technology to not only create the most flawless looking tans, but also to improve the condition of the skin.
So that's really the first thing to start out with, is a genuine compliment. And then there's an old, I learned this in sales like 20 years ago when I first got into sales, and it's called FORM, and it stands for from, occupation, or occupation, which is like, could be like, what do you do, right? But I like start with like, where are you from, right? But you can also start with the R and the M, which is tell me about what you do recreationally. What are you interested in? What are you about, right? And then the M stands for meaning. So you can ask questions like, what are you excited about right now? Or what was your intention for today? What do you want to get out of today? And you might be able to support them in that. So again, asking those questions that aren't just like, where, what do you do? Who do you work with? Like some of those really masculine questions, but really sparking more of like the human questions, and going from there. And then once you feel like, okay, I feel like I've created a spark. And sometimes we feel that. Sometimes we walk into an experience, an event. Like I'm sure everyone here has been in a continuing education class, right? Like you're there to learn about your craft. And once you feel that connection with someone, then the challenge really is often like, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Because maybe you walked in and you just like felt like high on life and everything was going really well. And you met 5 or 6 people. You even got their information. But then what do you do when you leave? And so this is this exercise that we did. And I'm going to just tell everyone how to do it, because this exercise is how you take that spark into a flame. And I want to tell a little story here about how meaningful this is, because I think when we understand what can come out of this, when we understand what's really at stake here, is when we're like, all right, I understand why this is important. I was at a conference in 2023. It feels like it was years ago, but it was in spring of 2023. Also in Arizona. I feel like all the best ones happen in Arizona, where you are. But don't they? I mean, because there's just like great.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So I was at this conference and I knew another woman that was there, and we were walking. I was like, let's sync up. Let's go to some of the same, sessions and breakouts and classes. And, because it's always nice to know someone, and you get to be like the wing woman, which, by the way, it's great to do that if you're going with a business partner or like a business bestie, but make sure that you're still meeting other people, because you went there for connection, right? And not just like connections, but connection. Make sure that you're connecting with people outside of the person that's comfortable. But we're walking through, and she met someone, or she knew someone that she recognized there, and they were chatting, and I was like standing there, that third wheel, and the woman's name was Amy. And I was like, oh, Amy, I hear you talking about launching your book. That's what they were discussing. And I was like, I have a podcast. I'd love to support you. Can I bring you on to talk about your book? Now, I didn't know who Amy was. I didn't know what her job was. I didn't know what her book was about. But I knew that she had great energy. She was animated. She was excited. And, if you meet someone, you're like, hey, if they've got good energy, then they're going to have a good story, or they're going to add value. And so she's like, yeah, absolutely. So here's what I did. And I'd never learned this. It just came in the moment. I grabbed my phone. So if you're watching the video of this, I literally grabbed my phone. I took a selfie with her. And then I was like, what's your number? And she gave me her number, and I just texted her, and I texted her the photo of the two of us, and I texted her my name. And the reason you do this is they'll remember you now, and you remember them. You know what they look like, and you know their name, and you have their number. So you can save them with the photo and the number. I like to save people of where I met them. So it'll be like, okay, like I'll save you as girlfriends in business. Maybe I also save the business name, because often that recollection will come back from that first memory. And then I sent her my Calendly link. So whether you have Calendly or Acuity or whatever your scheduler is, and I just said, hey, let's book a time to talk about your book, and we can talk about the podcast. That was it, right? Well, she responds to me. She books the time. We just jump on a 20-minute call. What we find in that 20 minutes is we have so much more in common. And then we book the podcast episode. I found out on that 20-minute call, she writes for Forbes Women. That's one of her, her things she does. She's a professional. She's a marketing expert, but she writes for Forbes Women. And she says to me, she's like, if you ever have an interesting story idea, send it my way. Or she's like, you work with amazing women. I profile women all the time. Send them my way. From that introduction, I ended up sending her 2 women that I thought, I'm like, they're doing really cool, important things. And so 2 different women that I knew ended up with articles in Forbes Women, Lori Harder being one of them. And then I kept in relationship with her, because that's the other thing is sometimes we jump on that first call, we're like, this is amazing, but then how do we continue to nurture that? And it ended up that Amy not only spoke at an event that I put on, but by chance, we ended up, my company ended up being able to get her a TEDx at George Washington, which was one of the things on her bucket list. And, it's not about like, what can we do for someone or what can they do for us? We want to do things for people when we feel connected and we care. And so it wasn't like a tit for tat thing, but I am sure because we built this relationship now, like what happens with the relationship? I like to say like, what is the ROI I'm going to get out of going to that event? That event, yes, I got, tens of thousands of dollars of business from speaking at it, but more importantly, the ROI I got out was relationships, opportunities, and impact. And impact leads to income.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you right there.
Go for it, please.
That very exercise is how you ended up on my podcast. You know that, right? Because I didn't go out looking for someone to partner with for your exercise. I waited, and then I went up to you, and I got you on the camera and managed to keep you in the phone for a future date. I knew I wanted you on my podcast.
Oh. And by the way, I have to just say, like, the bravery that takes. Because what she's talking about is I was literally on stage and I had given this assignment. I was like, everyone turn and connect. And everyone started by just connecting with a genuine compliment, right? To someone that they didn't know. And then I gave them the assignment. Everyone go take the photo, exchange. And then I said, I will give you what to say later. But you doing that, you coming up to me as a speaker, like most people don't do that. And the crazy thing about that is I think that we put people on pedestals or we say that they're out of reach. When the reality is some people have really good boundaries for sure, but often people don't take up the speaker or the thought leader on the offer. I remember this is probably 10 years ago, and there was I was at an event in Oregon, and a man stood up on stage, and this is like an award-winning scientist. He has products out there, like fascinating guy. And he was speaking to, there's probably 250 or 300 of us in the audience. And he was like talking about how much he cares. And he said, listen, I will like literally if one of you asked me a favor, I would, if it was in my power, I would do it for you. And he's like, I'm going to give you my phone number. And he goes, the reality is no one is going to do anything with it. And I'm like, I wrote that phone number down and I texted him after the event. I just said, I just want to thank you. Like you absolutely impacted me. I'm walking out of it like a different person. I kept that number. And about 9 months later, I was putting on a local event in the Bay Area where I live. And I was thinking, man, I would love to have that guy speak. This is before I was only doing female events, women, just women speakers, women audience. But I reached out to him and he lived in San Diego. And I said, is there any chance that you would consider coming up? Now, I had no speaker budget. I wasn't paying for anything because it was basically like a nonprofit event. And he's like, absolutely, I would love to be there. I've got some friends in the Bay. This is a great excuse to come up. And I just asked him. But again, what does that take? None of that happens without connection. And if you hadn't have had the courage to come up and connect with me, then, I mean, maybe later on Instagram, you would have reached out. I get a lot of requests, but I don't feel like if I don't feel like I have a personal connection or we don't know someone in common, I'm typically like, thanks so much, but I'm really booked right now. Right. But it was because of the personal connection that happened.
Yeah. Well, I really saw, first of all, the exercise of value that it brought me. And I know how important it is. I consult with women in business, and one of the things that comes up on a regular basis is, the importance of getting into rooms, creating strategic partnerships, synergistic partnerships, where they might do giveaways together or pop-ups at each other's locations, and the importance of meeting and building those relationships. And I just thought that technique was so incredibly brilliant. I had to talk to you about it, and I had to bring you on the show. So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Oh my God,
Seriously, it's,
of
really
course.
moved the needle for me. You were one of my very favorite speakers there. So
I so appreciate that. And, the funny thing is, like, I often speak on advanced visibility strategies. And I really felt, I was like, this is actually like a very simple topic. And again, often in business, it's really like, it's the simple and it's the things that create human connection that are so powerful. I mean, I was on that stage. I'll just, share for a moment. I was on that stage, Lori Harder's, and Lori is someone that I have followed and been inspired by for more than a decade. She was the first podcast I listened to back in like 2015, 2014. And I went to one of her events right after quitting my job in corporate, which was just under 10 years ago. I went to her event, I brought a few friends, and I remember watching her up on that stage. And I didn't even know what I went to the event for. I was like, I think this will be fun. I didn't know what I wanted to get out of it. And I walked away saying, I want to put on events. I want to help women transform. I want to be a coach. And that's what I did. And it was this beautiful full circle moment because Lori was at my event in September on my stage. I was interviewing her. And the thing is the in-between. I think people can see the before and the after, but the in-between is I love, when I say loved on Lori, like I was a fan of Lori's for years and I would occasionally comment on social. And I don't even know if Lori knew my name. She might have, right? But I worked consistently on putting myself in proximity. So I was in her husband's mastermind and I always made sure and this is just, I call it being a good human being, always adding value to any room you're in. This does not mean giving in a self-abandonment way. And it doesn't mean giving for what you get, but it's like, how can I add value to this room in a way that doesn't exhaust me or overwhelm me? Or who can I help or who can I connect with? And I had done that. And actually, I had won in Chris's mastermind, the MVP, which is like the most valuable. It's basically the person that gives to the group. And as part of that, I got a VIP day with Chris and a dinner with Chris and Lori. And so we were sitting there. And again, she had seen me a few times and she knew me by that time, but we were sitting there and we were talking about visibility and PR. And I was sharing some things with her, some strategies that I recommended she do when she launched Glossy, her business now. And she's like, this is so helpful and so good and so different than any other PR agency. She's like, why don't you pitch me? And I'm like, here's someone I've looked at, as like the person for 9 years. And I was totally terrified. And I finally did. And that's why we're doing PR now for Glossy. But my point of all of this is that opportunity happened in person. And I can remember being so nervous. I'm like, I don't know what to say to, what do you say when you meet one of your heroes? You just act like a human being. But again, that didn't come because I slipped into her DMs. That came because I ended up being in person with her and I took the opportunity in that situation to ask her questions. I wasn't just like, here's what you need to do. I was saying what are you excited about? Where's Glossy at? What's working? And it just was a very organic conversation of being interested in someone else's dream and their success and to see where can I contribute to that.
That's amazing.
Yes. But I know we want to talk about what do you do? So you've gotten the text, you've connected with someone. What do you do? And again, this is the opportunity, even if this isn't a new relationship, what do you do when you want to deepen a relationship with someone? Maybe it's someone that's sat in your chair on your table, that's been a client already. And you're like, hey, I really want to take this deeper. And I call this a coffee chat. Now, actually, ironically, as I'm sitting here drinking my own warm beverage, this is like an adaptogenic tea. I don't drink coffee. This can be a walking conversation. I actually love to just book a walk with someone, something active. Because let's face it, most of us, if we're busy business owners, we may not have the time to sit down for coffee, but we all need movement. We all need connection and we all need time in nature. So this is really an opportunity to dive in deeper with someone. And whether it's to fan that spark that you created that first time you met, or it's to build a deeper relationship. This happened with one of my best friends who was, we were in a nonprofit together and she just booked a call with me. And I didn't even think she liked me. I was like, what are we talking about here? And she said, I'm drawn to you and I want to know more about what it's like to work with you. And she ended up becoming my client, which I was shocked by. But more importantly, we built a friendship. Now, I do her PR and she's my attorney. So it works really well. And we just, we're great friends. But the biggest thing is, this is whether you have like 5 minutes to chat with someone or you have an hour, is I like to ask someone either, what is your big goal? And that could be their big goal in life. That could be their big goal this year. Or ask them what excites them. What are they excited about? What are they looking forward to? Because when you understand someone's goal or their mission or their vision or their purpose, that's where they're going. And when we ask people what they do, there's a lot of people that are doing something that doesn't excite them. And they may not even want support on what they do. They may want support or accountability or your belief in where they're going. So ask them where they're going.
Yeah, agree.
That's the big thing, because if you can provide any support, and again, when I say support, I'm not talking about just like, it might be introductions, it might be resources, it might be a favorite book, it might just be you saying like, hey, I believe in you. I'd love to provide you accountability to take that next big scary step. And this is mine, right? By the way, when you ask these questions, usually they ask them back. So think about what you would want to talk about, right? But asking about that, what is your big goal, or what is your mission, or what are you excited about, is you're going to tap into the part of someone's life that they are going to be the most energetic about. And then the follow-up is, what are your interests? What are your accomplishments? So this is called Gains. And this is from a tool that is used at BNI. I was in BNI like many, many years ago, Business Networking International. Really interesting group. It wasn't like totally my thing because it tends to be very masculine, like rule focused, but I love this exercise. So it's G is goal. The A, right? Their A is their accomplishments. And I like to add interest because I feel like we can connect over interests. I'm doing a burlesque class right now every Sunday night. And I'm not saying everyone wants to do burlesque, but I have had more people since I've been sharing that I'm taking burlesque classes and I'm doing a burlesque performance. I've had more women reach out to me saying, that is so cool, or I've loved to do that, or just like wanting to connect and communicate because of an interest that I have that I'm not even that good at, right? And then so G is goal, A is accomplishments, I is interest, and the N is for network. And this is a really interesting one. If we ask people like, where did you go to school, or where did you grow up? We start to find out that people are so much more complex than we give them credit for. So someone might look at me and say, okay, she's in the real estate industry, which I do have unbelievable contacts in real estate from my 20 years there. And in the 10 years kind of in the entrepreneurial space, in the investor space, in the startup space. But my husband went to Wharton and he's a startup founder, and we live in Silicon Valley. So someone may not see that about me, but I'm like, hey, if you need someone to look at your pitch deck, if you want it to be connected with angel investors and you're a female startup or you're a woman of color, like I've got great contacts. You have no idea who's behind someone when you meet them. And so just a little bit of explorative digging, and you might find out that there might be a connection that is absolutely going to make or break where you're going. And then the last thing is, how can I support you? How can I support you? And I think that a lot of us, one, we're not used to people asking us that. So when I ask someone, often the biggest thing that they say is accountability. Now, I'm going to encourage you, you don't have to be everyone's accountability partner. One of my very favorite, I call this like a business and life hack, is to connect two people that have a similar goal or going a similar direction. I like to call this business bestie matchmaking. The reality is if we're a giver or we're like, an aspirational or inspired human being, we probably don't have the time and energy to be friends with every single person we meet, to deepen relationships. But that doesn't mean that you don't connect with someone, because you can connect them with someone else and they're going to end up off so much better for it. And I look at like my community that I've created, and I have business partners that I connected, best friends, travel buddies, like actual husbands and wives, like all from like, oh, wait, I think you should be connected with someone. So I really encourage you to like look at these people that you're meeting as just these beautiful sparks of what sparks can you connect to grow a flame, whether it's with you or someone else.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. That's amazing. Well, one of the things that I like to do at the end of this podcast is to give the listeners three things, three takeaways that can move them forward in what they're trying to do. And I think from this perspective, it would be three things that they could do to get themselves out there. What do you think those three top things should be to move the needle for them?
Okay, so the very first thing, so this is going to be easy because it's someone you already know. I want you to think about someone that maybe you have a casual relationship with them, like someone you probably have their number, maybe, but you haven't actually built a relationship, but you're drawn to them. And you're thinking, someday I would like to get to know them better, or someday I would like to run this idea by them. To reach out, send them, I love voice memos because you can hear and feel someone's energy. Literally to reach out and say, hey, I'll say, Sabrina, I have to tell you, I know we've known each other for a while. I have to tell you, I've just always really loved and admired the way that you show up, or your honesty, or your authenticity, or your perspective. Like, again, whatever is true, give them a true, heartfelt compliment. And I really would love to get to know you better. Are you open to a 30-minute walk? Or, I mean, if you're near them, right? Or a coffee chat over Zoom. Or you could even say I'd love to get to know you better and know how I can support you in where you're going. Because I think that what people don't want to hear is, I want to pick your brain. And I get that often, and it feels very takey. Now, you may want to pick their brain, but how can you put that into an authentic invitation that feels like it's energetically two ways?
There are thousands of homeless dogs in the pounds and shelters and running all over the streets, and not enough people out there to help them. Sprays for Strays is a fundraising organization that raises money through the sunless tanning and beauty industry to help all the rescues all over the United States of America pull the dogs out of the pounds and shelters, get them vetted, get their vaccinations, get them spayed and neutered, help with any sort of behavioral issues, and help to get them into their forever homes. Go to spraysforstrays.com and become a member, or donate. Every little bit of support helps. Thank you to our sponsor, Sprays for Strays, for helping to save the lives of dogs, one spray tan at a time. Now, I'll tell you, I get a lot of people that reach out to me that tried to book time with me, and I'm so busy. For the most part, I don't do it. That feels really grabby to me.
So then ask someone, is there a way I can book or pay for a 30-minute call with you? I've had people that do that, and I will say, and sometimes I'm like, yes, I have a consult that someone can purchase, right? What you want to be really careful, especially if you're reaching out over the phone or over DMs, because I get this often, is how did you do this? Right? And especially because we both have podcasts, I typically would just be here's a podcast episode that can answer your question. Because they want to know, they want to pull the information out of us, but they don't want to actually spend a little time. But if someone came to me and said, Rebecca, I read your book, or I listened to this podcast episode and I got so much value out of it, here's just a question more.
Yes.
Then that's very different. You want someone to feel like they've invested. I've literally had someone that's I haven't had the time to listen to those podcasts, but can you just give me the straight answer? I'm like, I record the podcast episode to impact thousands of people. And it's not that, listen, anyone out there that is giving value to the world or the community, they want to help people, but you also don't get there in a way without overwhelm, or probably have been overwhelmed and burned out. You end up, I have created very good energetic boundaries for myself, even though I'm a helper at heart.
Yeah.
I'm a visionary in the way I think, but everything I do has to be about people. But you can feel someone's energy when they're coming from a place of it's all about them. So I'll give you an example. For years, I wanted to meet Jason Pfeiffer, is the editor-in-chief at Entrepreneur. And I was like, how the heck do I meet this guy? So I listened to his podcast. I followed his social, and I was fascinated by him. And there was an app at the time, I think it's still around, called Intro. And for $300, you could book a 20-minute call. I paid $300 and I booked a 20-minute call. And I asked him on that 20 minutes, I said, I am so grateful for what I've learned from you just as a viewer. And how can I support you? Make sure to ask that question, because then they know that you really You're not just trying to get. But what I'll tell you, what I got out of that wasn't even actually on the call, is from following him. He occasionally on his Instagram stories is like, hey, we're working on this article at Entrepreneur. And he did this. He's like, hey, working on an article at Entrepreneur. And he put a link in. He's like, it's about how to make work meaningful, or what does meaningful work mean? So it was a Google form of like, submit your questions. I happened to have a group coaching session that day. And I told everyone, I said, hey, everyone, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I want you to write down, what does meaningful work mean for you, and drop it in the chat. And they did it. So it was done. Done beats perfect. And then I said, okay, now go to this Google form and I want you to drop it in with your name, your email, etc. 3 of my clients that day got published. Well, I should say the next month, they got published in the print version of Entrepreneur as big pull quotes with their name and their business. So 3 clients got an Entrepreneur. That was because of the fact I followed him. He didn't do a favor for me, but in following him, I saw the opportunity that was possible. And if you really want to learn from someone, if you want to emulate them, if you love what they're doing, if you follow them and you consume their information, right? If you consume what they're putting out, opportunities to serve them in a way that will also help you will just show up. So I think that's number 2 is pick 1 or 2 people that are your expanders, but don't just try to go straight to them for information. Really see, they're probably I put out my best stuff on my podcast, right? So, and the same thing with you, right? You're the people that you're connecting with, or the things you're learning, come back to them to share how that thing that they shared, how you've implemented it, and how it has changed your life or your business or your income or your health or whatever that is. So that's number 2.
That's great.
Number 3 tip, go deep, not wide. That's number 3. Is I think that we get in this thing of I need to go to the event. I used to be like this. I was like, I need to go to the event and connect with 20 people. Now when I'm going to an event, let's say it's a 1-day event, I say, I'd like to get 2 great connections out of this, or per month, 2 great connections a month. And then it's, what connections am I continuing to nurture that month? Because if you think about it, if you're creating even 5 connections a month, that's 60 a year. You might be able to get on 60 phone calls or 60 coffee chats. But if you keep adding, how are you going to take care of the ones you've already created? And I think so many people go so shallow and they keep adding. And the reality is opportunities don't show up in shallow connection.
Yep. No, that's a great one. So you have so much to offer. I mean, your bio is unbelievable. I mean, you've literally done 3 lifetimes worth of work.
It's because I'm an Enneagram 7. We like to live fast and furious.
Well, I don't know what it is, but it's really impressive and it's really amazing. What would you like to tell our listeners that we haven't covered today? Anything in particular that you'd like to share or invite them to?
Oh gosh, I could give 20, but so right now, what I would say, I've always been something. One of my superpowers is I see where I'm at to where I want to go. I see it as a straight line, even though it's never a straight line. And so I don't waste a lot of time in I don't waste time in a lot of getting ready to get ready, which I do see that people do. If you are someone that you're this dream is off in the future, it's a future version of myself, understand you're never going to feel ready. You become ready in the action towards the goal. And I think the second part of that is, in understanding you're never going to feel ready, is I call this exercise panic monster. I think there's actually a TEDx that you can watch about this. I watched it probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I did the physical exercise. So you can Google panic monster on TEDx, and it's really about why we procrastinate is what it's about. And so that's a whole nother thing about how to overcome procrastination. But doing this exercise, you make a box, and basically it's for every month of your life. I think up to the average person, let's see, lives to be 80 something, right? And I checked it off and I went through and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 44 right now. I realized my life was almost half over. And, yes, we start out the first 18 years, we don't do a lot. And then in the last 18 years, we might also not be doing a lot. So I looked at it and I said, my time to live, to experience, to create impact is now. And if I don't fully embrace that, now that doesn't mean I need to do everything. And so again, I'm doing shallow, life experience also should be deep, not wide. That doesn't mean you can't dabble wide. My burlesque class, I'm taking a music writing class. I don't plan on being a professional burlesque performer or a professional music writer, those are things I'm doing for creativity and play, right? But don't put things off that you want to experience because you don't know if you're going to have the time. And I think the other thing is follow what excites you. If you are living a life in overwhelm and obligation, it is going to feel long. If you live a life where you're following what excites you, that doesn't mean every moment, because we can be chasing a goal that we're really excited about and have to do things during that are not exciting, that are stretchy, that are challenging, right? But it's like, are you excited and pulled towards the main goal? And then the last thing, and we'll wrap this up because I could do like a TEDx on all of you. The last thing I think is, if you are following what excites you, and this is anybody out there that maybe you've had a lot of starts, or you feel like you haven't gone in as deep enough. Maybe you get distracted easily, or you're just like, hey, I've pivoted 97 times and people are like, well, what's next, right? This has been really helpful for me. And I call it's the questions of discernment. So when I feel like I need to burn something down behind me and jump to the new thing, the first question is, am I actually being called towards where I'm going? Or am I running away from something?
Oh, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're really honest with ourselves and we really ask ourselves that, and we get quiet to reflect, whether it's a relationship or it's a job pattern or it's whatever it is, often we're running away. And the reality is if we don't fix the pattern, we're going to run away and the same thing is going to come up in a slightly different variation. So if you are running away, you can go back and fix that. You can take responsibility. You can clean up your side of the street, right? But if you are truly being called towards something, and this is like my, visionaries, which is most of the entrepreneurs that are listening, if you're like, no, I'm not running away from something, I am so excited I'm being called towards something. The second question of discernment is the thing I'm being called towards actually mine, or is it someone else's? Because I am passionate about passion. So there have been times that I've had amazing mentors and coaches in my life, and they want the best for me. This is not coming from a bad place, but I'll be like, here's what I want. And they're like, this is how you need to do it. And I get confused about their passion and certainty, and I mistake it for my own. And so 4.5 years ago, or right when COVID was starting, and I decided I was going to scale my business, I at the time had a mentor that was like, you need to do online courses and you're going to make a ton of money. And I spent $50,000 to build up all the back end and the course and the ads and all the things. And it started working. People were buying. And I went, wait a second. Like the moment I got over, like, I made $2,000 last night. I didn't do anything for it. I went, but I don't know if they're actually getting transformation out. And I heard the stat that 5% of people ever finish, or 95% of people don't. And if people aren't getting transformation, I don't want their money. And that's just a very expensive example of where I got pulled towards something that was someone else's. Because even though did I want to earn income and I wanted to make impact in this certain way around visibility? Yes. But that actual strategy was not for me. And it took me a lot of money and a lot of time to realize that I have to be in some type of feedback mechanism with my clients or students so that I can see the transformation, because I actually get juiced up off the transformation more than I do the money.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So how can our listeners work with you? What sort of things do you do? What sort of transformative business are you in?
Yes. Well, I always have my podcast, so that's where they can go listen for free. It's called Becoming You. And, I share many things like this, but I, deep dive into each of them. And I'm actually recording a few episodes later today. Right now, currently, I have a mastermind that I do each year called the Inner Circle. And it is a business and brand glow up for 6 and 7 figure female entrepreneurs. And it's really about, yes, we grow visibility and credibility and profitability, but it's really about understanding how to be seen and heard and valued as the unique expert you are, how to show up in your brilliance, how to stand in the spotlight, how to put the megaphone to your message. And we not just do the energetic side and the strategy side, but we do a lot of the done for you side. So photo shoots, video shoots, brand redesign, the hair and makeup, all of the things. Everyone speaks, whether that's on TV or on the stage, So we're really we look for women that are ready to step into their thought leadership or have wanted to do that, but don't know how. And we've navigated that many, many times and done it with our clients. And then a few times a year, I offer something called CEO slumber parties. And it's a 2-day, 1 night intimate experience with usually between like 16 and 18 women, where we dive in deep the first day into kind of personal goals and really in the blocks, and what are you meant for, right? And really aligning the goal with who you are so that it's so much easier and in flow. And then day 2, we dive into all the business and a lot of fun in between. A lot of fun.
That's amazing. Where do you do these?
So the ones I have one in December. That one is already sold out. And then I have them next year. Typically my house here, with what I'm at right now, because we moved last year in the pursuit of being truly in my joy and my creativity. We moved from our big, beautiful custom home in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, to our beach home in Carmel by the Sea, where we like can hear the ocean most nights. So I have it at my old house because it's gorgeous, and we do like beautiful, very bougie dinner. And I mean, this one, since it's already sold out, I can share because my clients probably won't hear about it because it's a surprise to them. But I have a feminine and masculine embodiment coach coming day 1 to actually talk about how do you, as a female entrepreneur, have a relationship with your partner in a way that, because in entrepreneurship is pretty masculine. How do you step back into the feminine and into the receiving? And then we have an Olympic athlete coming to do a movement class with us. Again, a really beautiful dinner. We've got some spiritual experiences. We have a sound bowl healing and tea ceremony. So again, I'm Enneagram 7. I'm all about community and experience. So it's not just about having like a beautiful experience and getting to know yourself better and goal planning and having an accountability container for 30 days after the event, but it's also about deeply connecting with other women who are not maybe doing the exact same things, but as entrepreneurs, we often feel like the crazy ones. So it's like meeting other women who you can bond with and call in for support outside of your normal day-to-day life.
Oh, sounds amazing.
Yes. I mean, just reach out on social, at Rebecca Cafiero or my website, and you can see more information about that. But those are really special because we get to really, really go deep.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, so much incredible goodness here, Rebecca. Thank you so much for taking your time to speak with me and to our listeners. And I'm so excited. I definitely want to learn more about your offerings, and who knows, I might even want to do one of them. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, I would love to have you there, and you would love. I mean, the women that I call in, I really feel like that's probably, of all of the beautiful things in my life outside of my marriage and my children, the women that have become part of my life, my clients, like, it is the most collaborative, fun, giving. It's deep and fun. And I think that's what we all want, right? Is we want deep relationships and we want to experience intense joy. That's what's there.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you so much. It's been such a privilege, and I'm grateful to have met you, and I'm grateful for your bravery and courage that day that now you're one of the women in my life that I can go deep with.
Thank you. Bye.